What up, player? It's your dictator, Donald J. Trump. Big titties are a man's best friend. Bright lights, big titty. What up, big titty? Sick old biddies. It's my very secret way of saying big old titties. I have the best words. Nobody has words like I do.
This is my favorite podcast, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. I have to listen to the show in the closet, but don't feel bad for me. I do all kinds of shit in the closet. Here they come. Get your ass ready. Oh, boy.
I hope you're ready for it. The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve back at it for another fun podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I love that he says he does all sorts of shit in the closet. I'm assuming he actually does shit in the closet, or at least his pants that have the remnants of the last dump.
I don't think he cares where he shits, to be frank. You know, like pants, closet, bed.
Yeah, that's all fair. Hey, we got a website. What do you know? It's thevocalminority.net. Because the .com used to be ours, and now someone's trying to bribe us for $30,000 to buy it. So go to thevocalminority.net.
Yeah, check us out there. We also have a ton of social medias. We're big, huge, in fact, on TikTok. We're doing real well on Reddit. You can find us on YouTube. We do well there. And we're on Threads, the Facebook thing, and Blue Sky. Ladies and gentlemen, check us out there.
Blue Sky. Speaking of TikTok, it's completely fallen out of the news cycle, but we only had 75 days to fix this TikTok problem in the middle of January. So what are we? We're coming up on like 60 days. When are we going to start talking about TikTok? Are we saving this thing or not?
Does it matter? Has everyone forgotten about it? So we'll just kind of forget about it and let it lapse and be fine?
I don't know. I feel like on day 74, someone at the White House is going to go, oh, crap, that deadline's tomorrow. What are we doing?
You know that Donald Trump's going to take another opportunity to look like a hero and save it. So I'm sure it's not going anywhere.
Well, hopefully that's not famous last words. But, yeah, find us there. Find us on all the socials. And, hey, we got a telephone, too. If you're listening in the 1990s, you can give us a call.
844-48-VOCAL. Leave a comment for us here at the Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are somewhat old school, like Nick and I, as we are less than a year away from turning 50. You starting to embrace that, or are you feeling weird about it?
Yeah, I'm starting to embrace it, I think. Although, you know, I had a couple of doctor's appointments, and I see a few other things that are kind of rearing their heads that is just showing my age that I'm having to take care of. So, yeah, I mean, hey, look, we can't do anything about it, Steve.
Yeah, that's fair. Louis C.K. has a classic bit about when you're in your 40s, doctors stop trying to fix stuff on you and just start telling you, like, yeah, your knee's just kind of bad now. Like, yeah, that's life. And Louis said, well, what if I was an Olympic athlete? You try to fix it. And like, yeah, you're not an athlete. So this is just how your life is now.
Yeah, we got to realize where we're at. I constantly, you know, I hang out with my mother as a friend and a mother, but I say, oh, God, my knee's killing me, my back hurts or whatever. And she's like, just wait. So I'm thinking like, yeah, it's a perspective thing. I should be happy for where I'm at.
Yeah, it's definitely a perspective thing. And I think we're doing pretty damn well, though, for dudes almost hitting 50. So I think we're hanging in there. But, yeah, Nick and I are Gen X and came across an article talking about, you know, as we go through this fun game of life, there are things that were acceptable when we were kids that are not nowadays. And, you know, whether that's words we use or political opinions or whatever it is, like, things have evolved, and I think that's generally a good thing.
I think it's a great thing, and I think it's something that only the intelligent will grasp onto, you know, because sometimes they say, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I can learn new tricks, and we should continue to learn new tricks as the world evolves around us. We should continue to evolve with it.
Yeah. I guess the question becomes, are things becoming antiquated for good, logical reasons? Or is it just the new generation doesn't respect our old ways and they're shitting on us all by throwing these traditions out?
It's got to be a little of both, you know. I don't think you can ever win.
Yeah. And, yeah, it is perspective. You know, a few years ago, I was in a relationship where my son asked if he could, you know, go out in the woods and go looking for rocks or whatever. And the person was like, he doesn't have a cell phone. You cannot let him go into the woods alone. What if there's an emergency? I'm like, did we have cell phones when we were a kid? Did you not ever go into the woods alone?
I always hear it's a different world now. It's a different world. Like, and now, if you look at things like, yeah, it is a different world, but it's not nearly as dangerous as you think it is out there. And we always feel like it wasn't dangerous like that when I was a kid. Yeah, you just hear about it more now.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's entirely true. There's always been hazards and dangers, and the audience may remember who J.C. Lee Dugard is. Do you?
Dugard. Oh, yeah. She was that girl that got kidnapped in Lake Tahoe, right?
Yes. This was someone who was literally a childhood friend of my ex-wife. And when I first met my ex-wife's mom, she told me about the story of when my daughter was little, one of her best friends got kidnapped from the bus stop here in our little community. And it rattled that community. That was in the late 80s, early 90s or something. And then years later, J.C. Lee Dugard was found being held captive in some creepy guy's backyard. And she had, had 2 kids with him and stuff. And I don't know. I haven't heard of someone getting kidnapped in this town recently, but it happened back then. So things have always been dangerous, right?
Dude, when I grew up, all I ever heard about was Ted Bundy and the Green River Killer. We had serious shit going on. And what about John Benet Ramsey, dude? That happened. Stuff has always been happening. It's just easier to see it now.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I came across an article talking about things that Gen X, our generation, grew up doing that would horrify the parents of today.
The helicopter parents of today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents have taken it too far, and a lot of parents do hover, speaking of ex-wives. So, the more things change, the more they sometimes stay the same.
That's true.
So the first thing on this list, things that you and I did back in the day that would freak people out nowadays, sneaking out of the house for hours at a time without telling your parents you went anywhere.
Yeah, you don't think it happens today?
It's a great question. If one of my kids snuck out of this house, I would be freaking mortified. You don't need to. Tell me, what are you going to do? You want to go hang out with your friend? I would say yes. You don't need to sneak out of the house.
What if they wanted to go teepee someone or egg a house or something, A
lot of our shenanigans we did when we were kids are so hard nowadays. Like prank phone calls. You can't do that now. TPing someone's house, everyone's got Ring doorbells. Some of these things, technology-wise or whatever, have just become difficult or antiquated. So
sure.
What you're sneaking out to do, other than sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and maybe I've been lucky that my kids are doing that, but if they wanted to, they could just tell me I'm going over to Janie's house Friday night, and I would say, great, have fun.
There's no parameters with, hey, you got to check in, let me know. You don't check their location, that kind of shit?
The location thing, I do check on them every now and again with that, but not if I think they're at a friend's house that I trust and parents I know and all that. You have to give your kids some slack in this world to go get in trouble. Mm-hmm. I would rather I know they're out and maybe doing something bad than I'm just blissfully sitting in my bedroom watching reruns of Different Strokes and having no idea where they are.
Yeah. No, I understand, dude. I think there is a happy medium with it. We snuck out, and most of the shit we did when I snuck out, yeah, I could have died many times, dude, and I'm still here. So, some people die, some people don't. That's my statement.
Right. But would your parents have been pissed if they caught you sneaking out?
Of course. Yes.
Right. And so would any parent nowadays. So I don't know that has really changed much. I think the maybe slight aspect of that has changed is in the good old days, you and I would say, hey, Mom, I'm going out to play. I'll be home by dark. And my parents would have no idea what I was doing for those next 5 or 6 hours.
True.
That is a little bit different probably nowadays.
In different areas, maybe it's not different. Out in the Midwest where, you grow up on a ton of property or whatever, I guess it depends on your lifestyle. But in a city or in a big neighborhood, things have obviously changed from when we were kids, but maybe not everywhere.
Yeah, that's kind of a commentary on our parents. They had faith that we'd come home eventually. At least now I feel like if I need to contact my kids, they do have a cell phone, but they don't generally free roam for the whole day or night anymore.
Yeah, you think it's weird if you haven't heard from them at some point.
Yes. I didn't know this was a thing. I might have to read about this one. Next one on the list. Listening to true crime cassette tapes before bedtime. Was that a thing? Did we have true crime cassette tapes back in those days?
I didn't. I mean, I never heard of a true crime cassette tape.
No, I don't know that I have. But this says long before podcasts became popular, true crime cassette tapes offered a glimpse into the darker side of human nature. That's a weird one. I didn't know. None of my friends were sitting around listening to the original ebooks or podcasts on cassette tapes. So,
do you remember a VHS tape that we used to order? I'm blanking on the name of it.
That showed all the suicides and deaths
Yes.
and stuff. Yes. I don't remember what the hell that name was, but yeah, no, that was a big thing. That was living in infamy. As hard to find as porn.
Right, but I'm not looking, or I've never listened to a true crime on cassette. That was never a thing for me.
Faces of Death, is that what it's called?
Yes, that's right, Faces of Death.
Yeah. So listening to true crime cassette tapes, on behalf of Gen X, I don't think any of us were doing that, so I'm not sure. But, it is a common thing nowadays. This whole fixation on true crime stuff that seems to lean more female, I don't entirely understand. And my son has brought up to me recently that he's been getting sucked into some of these things. And I asked, who got you sucked into these things? Mom.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I'm completely addicted to him. Rachel and I listen to various podcasts, but we're also big Dateline freaks. And I understand why people are so into them. It's interesting to hear stories, again, that are outrageous and of killing, maiming, and death. I think you're in the minority that you haven't picked up on it. Does your girlfriend?
No, not that I'm aware of. I know she's done some murder mystery books or things like that, but she's not a big true crime podcast lover.
Huh.
So I don't know. I find that a weird way to relax at the end of your day.
Ooh, I love it. Makes me feel normal.
That you're not out killing people? It makes you feel better or what?
Yeah.
That's interesting. The next one on this list, I think this is somehow like geographically specific. So I'm curious if your neck of the woods is different than mine. These are things that Gen Xers did as a kid that would freak people out nowadays, and that is using fireworks unsupervised. Now, where I live now and where I have raised my kids, we live in a gem, Lake Tahoe. It's a protected, it's not technically a national park. I think it's a national forest or something. But anyways, fireworks are strictly illegal in the Lake Tahoe basin. And so when my ex-wife grew up there, that was grilled into her brain. So the first time she ever went to Michigan with me, where fireworks are sold at every grocery store, every 7-Eleven, literally people sell them on the side of the roads, her mind was blown. Like, what do you crazy people in the Midwest mean that you just buy fireworks and blow stuff up? But it was super common as a kid that I would go spend my money buying fireworks, and hell yeah, I'd go light them off on my own. I didn't have any adults standing around. But what was it like in the Pacific Northwest?
It was about the same. I mean, we lit them off all the time. And when I was a little kid, I obviously was supervised. I did it with the family. But when I got old enough to go do my own thing, 14, 13, I went and lit them off all the time by myself. They still do it here. I mean, even though that it is illegal in a lot of areas, you can go to the Indian reservation and get all the fireworks you want, and there's no M80s. You can get anything you want. There's no restrictions.
Right. Do any of your young nieces, nephews, cousins, any of that kind of stuff? Are you aware if they're out doing fireworks unsupervised?
I don't think they think they're as cool as we did when we were kids.
That's probably actually a good note. My kids have expressed little to no interest in them. I remember there was a couple summers back we were in Michigan, and they were a little fascinated that their cousins were out lighting stuff off, and they went and joined in, but very hesitantly. But again, that's because of where they grew up.
Yeah. Well, you are lighting off bombs of some degree, Like I got hurt by fireworks when I was a kid, and nothing that I, couldn't get over, but I got burned real bad several times by fireworks. I wasn't that good at fireworks.
Yeah, again, this is more of a commentary on why were our parents okay with us lighting stuff off? Like, I don't think it would be unusual for a parent nowadays to think that maybe should be supervised. So why didn't our parents ever think that?
Listen, they had to send us off into a dangerous world. You know what I mean? Like, we had to be ready for it, and that's how we learned, I guess.
Yeah. I remember going to some family friend in Michigan where these people were adults, I mean, at least in their 20s. So to me, that was a full-grown adult back when I was a kid. And,
Right.
I mean, not only were they shooting off every firework on planet Earth up into the sky, but this one guy, he would put like rockets and stuff in a, like a PVC tube, and he would use it as a bazooka. He put it on his shoulder and like shoot it across the yard at people and stuff. And like,
Right. Yeah. No, we were crazy with them. We weren't real careful. Did you ever see anybody shoot Roman candles out of their butt?
I've seen some videos of that, but I don't recall anyone doing that in my real life. No.
Would you hold the Roman candle thing and just let it go off? Yeah. Not in your butt. But.
No. Maybe on a fun Saturday night coming up, I'll try that out.
Yeah, it's never too late.
Things that we Gen Xers did that would horrify parents today. Calling collect from a payphone at all hours. Well, first of all, there's no freaking payphones left anymore. So that would be odd enough if one of my kids called me collect on a payphone. You don't have to call collect anymore, do you? I mean, nothing, the old 10 cents a minute day and whatnot. Like, that's all dead.
No, it's not dead for payphones and such. I mean, listen, the only place you really get a collect call now is from jail. So you're probably in prison or jail.
And that would bother me, I guess, if my kids were calling me collect for that reason. I mean, I know a technical payphone you'd have to put money in, but where is there a payphone anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we've discussed before, they're far and few between. I don't know if they're in larger cities, but I don't see them hardly ever. But we knew the trick, right?
Oh, yeah. I used to do it a lot where I would do a collect call, I'm coming home at 7, and just, because you had to record your name or whatever.
Right. Yeah. We did it all the time. I mean, yeah, we knew our way around it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That was a funny little life hack back then. The, call and collect and just shouting your message, and then the other party would hang up.
Yeah.
There was another funny life hack I remember learning in those days that always fascinated me that I suppose still would be applicable today.
What is it?
One of my sisters was dating a guy a couple years older. So when she was in high school, he had at one point graduated and gone down to college in Florida or something. And he would mail her letters or cards or whatever by flip-flopping the return address with where it was going to. So in other words, he would put her name in the return address corner and his name in the mail to. He would put it in a mailbox with no stamp. The post office would get it, go, there's no stamp, return to sender. So they would mail the letter back to where he wanted it to for free.
That's genius, dude. I've never heard that, and I love it.
Yeah. So give it a try. I mean, I know stamp costs like 7 cents or whatever, but it's a good hack. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great hack. Stamps have gotten expensive. They are higher now. I think I just bought 2 stamps. I think they were 50-some cents a piece.
Oof, 50 cents. Right. And what do you get for that? They take it and hand deliver it across the country? That's the only thing you get? Come on.
It's true.
So, yeah, no collect calling going on anymore because it's really not a thing.
Right.
How about this one? Listening to inappropriate music with curse words. They're saying that would freak out the modern parents. I staunchly disagree with that.
I do too. Okay. I mean, it's fairly well known on this show that I don't have kids, so I don't know a lot of things. All I can do is judge other people that have kids, which has been fun, I would do that so much better, that type of shit. But my sister, dude, with her kids, obviously I was hanging around them all the time. My sister's not a trash bag of a person. She's just an average person. They listen to cuss words and stuff in their music from fairly early ages. That was not acceptable to my parents, but again, I think it was a different time. There's so much swearing in music now, it'd be hard not to listen to.
Exactly. In our Gen X days, middle school and into high school, that was a brand new sort of thing. There had been some level of swearing in pop music, Pink Floyd, the do goody good bullshit or something, but it was so slight, so benign, and so rare. In our day is when the whole parental advisory for albums came a thing, like Two Live Crew. That album was so shocking that they were swearing and using the N-word and
NWA. I mean, it was hardcore, swearing. It wasn't a little shit or crap, right. Once in a while.
And those parental advisory stickers just made all of us want to buy the album even more, which was the irony. But yeah, back then it was new and it was shocking. Now it is completely commonplace. Please, let's not forget that WAP Wet Ass Pussy, just a mainstream hit that I think won Grammys and stuff. I mean, that is shocking. It makes Two Live Crew look like a Disney show, you know?
Completely. I remember being a kid. First of all, my sister bought a Madonna cassette, and my dad was like, nope, she burned the cross in the video, no.
Right.
I also remember him seeing that Prince was on tour at the time, and that he, in his live shows, got into a bathtub on stage. My dad was like, nope, we will not support a guy that does that. That is trash. Like, no Prince in this house.
Right. No, that's hilarious. Yeah, things have changed. So I don't agree at all that modern day parents would freak out for swearing. I think you'd sound like a complete prude if you did freak out for that. So.
What age was it with your kids that you started letting them test the boundaries of using language themselves in conversation?
That was a slow evolution, because the funny thing is, you and I, having our history of being shock jocks on the radio and getting into this podcast, you would think that I would be a parent swearing like a sailor. But our career actually taught me to censor myself, to know when I can and can't swear. My ex-wife swore like a sailor up and down every day, in and out. So it was early teens, 12, 13, 14, that my kids started slowly slipping it in. And there was no way you could stop it. Because mom's swearing left and right, how could I possibly admonish you? We just had discussions about time and place. Those words will offend people in certain times and places, but I'm not going to pretend that there's some words that are just so evil you should never utter.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Was your ex-wife using the F word freely?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything. I mean, not like the N-word or, slurs or something, but yeah, no. Fuck, shit, asshole, whatever. That was all flying.
C-U-N-T?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think she was a big user of that word, but it wouldn't surprise me. And all the friends that they had over. And also, too, my kids spent a lot of time growing up in her business, which is an automotive shop.
Yeah.
So customers, the mechanics, I mean, it was just so commonplace.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I remember my niece coming to me when she was probably like, 12 or 13, asking me, like, when do you think it would be okay if I swore in front of my mom? I was like, I don't know. Are you swearing just to swear, or is there a use for the language? She was like, I'm just wondering, like, if I would get in trouble for saying something. I said, the only way to know is to try it. Right. See what happens.
Did you ever get your mouth washed out with soap? I did once.
Yes, I did, dude. I got it more than once.
I can't imagine doing that to a kid nowadays. Plus, they could probably call the cops on you or CPS.
Yeah. I had somebody I knew in my life that used sassy sauce. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So if their kids said something they weren't supposed to or swore or whatever, they would dump Tabasco sauce Tabasco sauce on their tongue.
That's hilarious.
You want the sassy sauce?
And I'm sure the kids stopped swearing after that.
Immediately, dude. It's now the Pope. He's become the Pope.
Yes, of course. The next one on this list here, things that us Gen Xers did that would horrify parents today. I don't know. I think there's an updated version of this. Blowing their allowance on cigarettes while underage. Now, I was never a smoker, but you were. What age did you start?
Well, I mean, I tried my first cigarette when I was like 8 or 9 years old, but that was just I tried it and I was like, ugh, but started like smoking. I was a freshman in high school when I started.
How did you try one at 8 or 9 years old? Where was that coming from?
I was out in the woods, unsupervised, with a bunch of friends from the neighborhood, and somebody brought a cigarette of their dad's out into the woods and was like, try this. And they were a few years older than me, and I don't even know. I tried to inhale it. It was one of those stupid, like, oh, that's gross type thing. Yeah. But really starting to smoke 9th grade.
Okay. Listen, it is completely disingenuous to say that if a modern day parent caught their kids smoking, that they would freak out. Now, if they caught them smoking cigarettes, that would be like, I don't know, you catch your kids doing Morse code, because kids aren't smoking cigarettes, but they are vaping at nauseum at probably at greater levels than any Gen Xers ever smoked cigarettes. Vaping is insanely common nowadays.
For sure. And the whole idea of me blowing my allowance on cigarettes, like, A, I never got allowance. B, I had a job. I was either buying them myself or stealing them, which I probably would have gotten in more trouble for stealing than smoking.
Yes. There's someone in my life who was recently a middle school principal, and they had literally a desk drawer full of vape pens that every month or two they would have to go recycle or dispose of because it was a non-stop stream of confiscating vape pens from middle school kids.
What's middle school? 12 years old?
6th, 7th, 8th grade. So, 12 to 15-ish, give or take.
That's crazy, dude. I mean, that is young, but it seems so safe to kids, right? Because they see everybody doing it. You can get away with doing it inside, sneaking it here and there. It just seems safe.
Yeah. So, it's still a thing, I assure you. It's just a different form. So.
For sure.
Let's see here. How about Gen Xers were babysitting other kids? Well, technically still needing a babysitter themselves. Yeah. So, having a 12-year-old babysit an 8-year-old or something. I don't know. I mean, we had Neo babysitting Crosby, and they're 3 years apart. But I think Neo had to have been a teenager the first time we tried that, 13 or 14, babysitting a 10-year-old,
Yeah, I think we did worse. I think it's not as bad because Rachel tells me stories all the time of when she was 6 years old babysitting her 1-year-old sister. We did that kind of shit. We didn't have choices. I mean, there was not childcare when we were kids like there is today. It was Denise down the street earning $4 an hour or whatever, Yeah. So, I think that it was out of necessity when we were kids. You are more careful with it, I think, today. Didn't you we were just talking about you letting your son be alone for an overnight period of time.
Yes. First time. Now, it didn't end up happening. He ended up wanting to go sleep at a friend's house, which I didn't blame him for. But at age 15, I was going to let him stay home alone for 24 hours. He was getting here in the afternoon, home alone all night, cook yourself dinner, wake up the next day. And it felt, I'd never done it, so it felt a little weird. But
sure.
I'm also he's 15. He's about to get his driver's permit. Of course he's old enough.
That's the thing, dude, is that, yes, he is less than a year away from, if he wants to, going 100 miles an hour and 5,000 pounds worth of steel, right? Right. So, he could do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Next thing on the list, I'm going to call bullshit on. Things Gen Xers did that parents nowadays would freak out for. Getting severely sunburned because sunscreen wasn't a thing. First of all, it was a thing. It may not have been super common, but for a fair-skinned redhead who got sunburned a lot as a kid, it was definitely a thing. But it's still an issue nowadays. Kids don't want to wear sunscreen still. My kids have gotten sunburned and learned the lessons the hard way, so that's not changed.
That's interesting because I didn't have sunscreen around when I was a kid, and I feel like the marketing on sunscreen has changed in a major way. When I was a kid, what was on TV? Hawaiian tropics, oil to make you even tanner in the sun. I don't remember sunscreen as a kid. I remember getting burned the shit out of multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was somewhat out of necessity. I was so aware of it. But no, you're right. The oil used to be a thing. And spray tans and tanning beds have evolved over the course of our lifetime as well. But getting kids to put sunscreen on, trust me, is still a big issue. They don't want to do it. It washes off in the water no matter how sports proof it is or whatever. So I don't think that parents nowadays would freak out that their kids got sunburned. It's still a problem.
My sister definitely, with her 2 kids, I watched her continuously lather them up. And they're both fairly pale like you and I. But, she would freak out if they got... Not freak out. You're going to get burned, dude. This is a thing called life.
Yes, and that's often how you learn lessons in life. So,
that's right.
Here's one I'm not familiar with, that this is a thing. So they're saying Gen Xers did this, parents would freak out nowadays. Going inside a stranger's house on Halloween. No questions asked. Now, going inside a stranger's house, that was not a very common practice in trick-or-treating, unless it was that neighborhood house that had a haunted house in the garage or something. I mean, there were so many people and kids around, though. So if you're letting your kids go trick-or-treating in some desolate neighborhood and people are inviting them in their house, that would have been creepy back then. It's still creepy now, but come on.
Yeah, I don't remember going into anyone's house. I mean, maybe if we kind of knew, hey, that's Roy, he lives across the street, but not like someone we never knew, unless it was, like you said, a haunted house in the garage or something. But yeah, I don't think kids are doing that.
No, I don't think it is either. So I don't know what neighborhood the author of this grew up in.
Did your parents look through your candy before you could eat it when you were a kid?
No, that's another urban legend thing. This whole like razor blades and the candy, like I don't think it ever happened. And if it did, it's because somehow that got into the news cycle that was a thing. Because come on. And no, my parents didn't inspect it except to take a good Snickers bar from me or something.
My parents inspected, dude. Or I should say my mom inspected. But she inspected before I ate, you know.
Did she crush them all to see if there was a razor blade?
No. She just looked through it all to see if there was anything obvious that she should be careful of.
Yeah, that predates Fox News, but I think it's one of those stories that made its way out there, but never really was a thing.
We're going to have to research that. It had to be a thing, dude. Someone had to bite down on a razor blade at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. The next one on this list, I find this one highly debatable. Things Gen Xers did that parents nowadays would freak out. Riding your bike without a helmet. I might be on the short list of parents that is just like, I survived my youth without ever falling on my frickin' head on my bicycle. I crashed my BMX bike often. I don't ever recall smashing my head. I didn't wear one then, and I don't tell my kids to wear one now. They did when they were little because it's become so commonplace. But there's been times where my son's like, I want to take my bike out, but I don't have a helmet. I'm like, you'll survive. Go ride your bike.
Yeah, I feel like that's the cool thing to do. I don't know if it's the smartest thing in the world. I did crush my head on my BMX bike. I landed off a jump right on my forehead and got.
You didn't get your arms up? Nothing? You just smashed face first?
No, my bike flipped and I was holding onto the bike and didn't get my arms out in time. It fell right down onto my forehead on a rock. But I think that, you know what, it's kind of like seatbelts. Like, yeah, I didn't wear seatbelts as a kid, but obviously I wear them now because the technology is there to make me have a better survival rate in my car, you know?
Well, that I agree with, that it was weird when we were kids that seatbelts weren't common because they clearly have a gigantic difference. But bike helmets, I know it happens, but I don't know. And I'm in the minority. Other parents around me would look down their nose at me for saying this.
Yeah.
Same with skiing, by the way. I don't wear a helmet skiing. My kids do. And I understand that a lot of people smash into other people. That's where you're probably going to screw yourself. This whole running into a tree or something, like, I don't know who doesn't have the reflexes to put their arms up to brace that impact, but I do not wear a helmet, but I have had my kids wear them skiing.
Tell you when I was glad I was wearing a ski helmet, okay? I was getting off the chairlift, and the chairlift malfunctioned, and the motor sped up, and I was already off the seat, and it hit me in the head and threw me like 15 feet.
Oh, like the chair hit you in the back of the head?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a rare accident right there.
Happened, did it? I mean, I was lucky I had a helmet on, but yeah, I didn't for a lot of years wear a helmet skiing, but Rachel bought me one year for Christmas, and yeah, I've worn it ever since. Only also because it has headphones in it, which is also nice and dangerous. So
I was going to say, that's dangerous. Actually.
Right, but I got a helmet on.
I have worn headphones before skiing, and it creates two problems, in my opinion. One, yeah, you can't hear anything going on around you. If someone, you can hear usually the ice or the snow if somebody's going out of control. You can hear someone yelling, like, look out below, or, you know, on the left or whatever. But the problem I had, I always would have like Metallica or Pantera in my headphones, and it makes you feel like you're in some extreme sports movie, and you have to ski to match the energy of the music.
It's awesome, dude. It is really fun to listen to that music while you're skiing. I like it.
Yeah. Having said that, like dirt bikes, always wear a helmet. I always have, always will. Even my dirt bike helmet right now has scratches on it where I have tumbled and smashed my head and stuff. And there's more momentum behind that, like a bicycle. I don't know.
You're just a cool dad, dude. That's all it is. I mean, it's not logical what you're saying. So you're just cool.
I'm cool up until the point I have a paraplegic kid. Then I will be heavily looked down upon.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. That is my list of things us Gen Xers got away with that debatably parents nowadays would freak out on. Some I agree with, definitely not all.
So a lot of different things that change with time. As we navigate this world, Steve, we've gone through relationships with women in our lives, And even from when we were in high school to now, some of those things have changed that we found acceptable back then or that were the norm back then as opposed to now. I came across this article talking about dating rules from the 60s that sound insane to teenagers today. And the contrast is pretty funny with some of them.
I will say there's some relationships I've been in where I probably should have been wearing a helmet.
Yeah, that's the truest thing you've said all day, dude.
Yes, but old school dating rules that would be antiquated today. All right,
let's see if we agree with any of these. Remember, this isn't even when we were kids. This is back in the 60s. You and I didn't come until 76, so... Yep. Asking parents' permission before you could even think about taking a girl out, you had to face her parents, usually her father, in the living room. Young men would put on their best suit, polish their shoes, and nervously present themselves for inspection.
Well, I mean, first of all, that really kills the art of the romance. Like, I got to go ask your dad first and then call the girl? What if the girl rejects me after I already asked the dad? What a humiliating cycle that would be.
Well, I think it's different, dude, in so many ways, because usually if you go ask the dad, and he said yes, the girl didn't have much of a choice. The father was saying, yes, you can, I approve.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize it worked that way. I would have brought a fifth of gin to somebody's parents or something. Yeah. Asking a father for permission to take a girl on a date is way old school. I didn't even subscribe to the philosophy I should be asking the dad for permission to propose to the daughter, let alone go on the first date.
Why is that?
Because it seems completely antiquated and old school. You do not own your daughter. I don't expect anyone to ask my permission if anyone's going to propose to any of my kids.
With your kids, though, I don't think of it necessarily because it's something I'm still into. I want to be, if I had a kid, I'd want you to come and talk to me. I don't want to be asked for permission because you're right, I don't own anything. Right. But I would like for you to come and tell me your intentions. Maybe I'm old school that way. I would like to know that, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I hope you're on board with it. I can't think of too many times where you'd be like, fuck no, I'm not on board. You're a shitbag,
That's what I say. You should know your kid's partner well enough that the answer should be relatively obvious. Just like you should never propose to a woman if you don't know the answer is going to be yes. So if her father doesn't have a strong enough opinion of you, hasn't gotten to know you well enough, that it's pretty implied that he's okay with your relationship. It seems so, I'm buying your daughter to ask permission, planned arranged marriage or whatever.
It's funny, dude. You'll think this is you'll think I'm crazy for this, okay? When my sister got married, just 4 years ago or whatever, my dad's gone. There was a part of me who thought oh, maybe he'll come to me and tell me, that, hey, I'd like to marry your sister. Yeah. And when it didn't happen, I thought, oh, that's weird that he didn't come and talk to me. Do you think I'm crazy?
On the old school mindset, you're correct. He should have then come to the son to ask for permission. But no, I find it all very antiquated and a little possessive. Did you ever threaten him, though? Did you ever give him the brother speech? You hurt my sister and I'm coming after you, just so you know.
I don't know if I outrightly did, but I think I told him, if you ever messed with her, and then kind of gave him a signal, I'll shoot you in your fucking head. Yeah. I think I did that.
I jokingly, quote unquote, said it to both of my sister's, fiancés, who I'd known for years at that point. But it was just congratulations, man, you're doing well. Now, if you hurt my sister, I'm going to have to kill you, right? Right? You get that?
Okay. Right, yeah. I'm kidding, not kidding.
Right, exactly. But ask your permission on a date. That's funny.
These are all antiquated rules from the 60s that sound insane to teenagers of 2025. No single dates until you were 16 years old. Group dates were a big thing and the norm for anyone under 16. We'd gather at the malt shop or the bowling alley in big groups. But, hey, if you want to go on a single date, you got to be at least 16.
It's tough to go on a single date if you're not 16 because you either have to walk or ride your bike somewhere or the parents have to drop you off.
You could finger bang her in the woods.
Is that a formal date?
I think it's more formal than most malt shops,
Right. No, I don't know. I guess my kids weren't socially advanced enough that at ages 13, 14, they were wanting to go on single dates. That was a high school issue at best case scenario. My son is a freshman, and he's just now getting into dating. And he has been asking me some questions recently, like, did you date a lot in high school? Or what's a good first date to ask a girl on? Like, he's been coming at me with some questions, but he's 15, and he has gone on one single date already. That's a good point. And no, his mom and I didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah, that's weird, having to wait till you're 16. I mean, I think, again, like, you're old enough to go out with somebody. It's not like you're spending the night with somebody, but yeah, you can go out.
And it's just a fantasy to think that if you have you have to go on double date rule, that's going to stop sex or drugs or whatever. Like, if they want to do that, they're just going to go do it. So.
Yeah, you want to finger bang in the woods, like, you can get her done.
That's what the woods are there for, goddammit.
That's right. This one will seem odd to you. I know it will, because it's so odd to me, and we think in a similar fashion. These are all things that seem antiquated. These are rules from the 60s that freak teens out today, and this one is strict curfews. 10:30 p.m. on weekends was standard, and it was carved in stone. Being even 5 minutes late could mean no dates for weeks.
It's interesting. Again, in a lot of ways, this is an issue I simply have not had to deal with. On the times my kids have done things like this, they understand that, you got to be home by a certain time. No one has ever tried to push the envelope on me. As in, if I say, get home by like 10 o'clock, or no one's been like, I want to stay out till midnight. Like, it's just implied and understood there's some limits. The bigger problem I've had is with my kids' extracurricular activities, keeping them out until 10, 11 o'clock midnight for either travel team stuff or building sets, opening week of the theater stuff, and they're out till late. Like, that crap drives me a little nuts.
What's curfew for your son?
There isn't one. There isn't a hardcore one because it just doesn't come up often. If it's a school night, I would say 8 or 9 o'clock. If you're going to a buddy's house, let's get it wrapped up. Usually 8 o'clock, I guess. But it's just so rare. So I don't know if I have a good parental take on these things. It's not come up.
Did you have a curfew?
No, not really. It was all just based on reasonable. Like, what's the event you're going to? What time is it going to be done? Like, come on home afterwards.
Yeah, I had curfews. I mean, I did push the boundaries with it. I think I've told you before that my dad ended it very quickly with locking the door from the inside. So I had to, ring the doorbell. And I had friends with me, and he answered the door naked and was like, "Don't ever be late again." I was like, hilarious. Point taken, dude.
Yeah, well, that's seared in your brain, I'm sure. So.
But I see my nieces asking for extensions all the time. Like, hey, your curfew, you should be home by 10 o'clock. Hey, could I have an extension till 11? Do you think I could stay out till 11? I always see them begging for extensions.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, it hasn't come up for me. I mean, I don't know. I would stick to some reasonable time frame, 10 or 11 o'clock. But part of that, again, if they're not 16, I got to go pick you up. So I'm not picking you up at 11 o'clock at night. Or either stay over or no, I'm going to get you at 9 or 10 because I want to go to bed at some point.
That's crazy. That's so old, dude. Well, you can't go pick someone up at 11:30? You're that old?
I guess I could, but that's just pressing the limit. But I literally have been dealing with this with my son in theater. Like, their school program has some weird freaking thing where it doesn't matter if it's a school night. If we got to stay till midnight to finish this set piece, that's what you're doing. And I find that insane. Especially for the freshmen that can't drive themselves home. I'm just sitting around waiting for the text, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Like, I'd either like to have a drink, smoke a bowl, go to bed, relax, watch a movie. Like, I just sit around waiting. So I'm more annoyed with the school than I am any of their friends.
All right. These are all things that were huge in the 60s, and teens find them outdated now. Door-to-door pickup. This is something that's interesting. There was no honking from the driveway or sending a text. You had to walk up to the door, ring the doorbell, and face the family. Girls would wait upstairs until called down, making a grand entrance.
Yeah, that is a sign of the time sort of thing. I heard some comedian recently doing a bit about who the hell rings a doorbell anymore. Like, what are you doing, you crazy person? Text me that you're in my driveway and I'll come down. And I guess I do that. I mean, what I do when I go to pick my kids up, usually I send them a text saying I'm like 5 minutes out, be on the lookout. Or as I'm pulling up, I'm here, I'll text them. But if after 30 seconds I don't see the front door open, I'm not some hermit. I'll go knock on the door.
Sure.
The parents or whatever. It's not that big of a deal, but it has become a little old school. And I don't know if that's weird or just a modern convenience. I'm in your driveway, come on out.
Yeah, I think there's also a side to it that is sort of lost. If I go over to hang out with, not me, but if a person goes out to hang out with your son and they are driving, hey, we're going out for the night. Don't you want to see Dylan and see what kind of shape he's in? See if he's, maybe been doing any drugs or don't you want to see the person who your son's leaving with?
At the pickup, do I want to see them?
Yeah. Well, he comes over to your house to, grab your son and they're going to go out and do something. Don't you want to see what kind of shape they're in before they leave? Not
necessarily, because I wouldn't send my kids out with other parents that I don't know already. I don't have some level of trust.
I'm saying a friend. If a friend, say they're driving now. A friend came over to grab them. They're going to go do something. Whatever it is, No. You don't want to see if he's good to drive, if he's being mature.
Man, you hung out with some deviants apparently when you were in school. No, I don't. What am I supposed to gauge how stoned they are if they're drunk or something?
Just so you don't have to give them a blood test or anything, but I want to know who my kid's about to leave with. Sure.
That's funny. Well, listen, my kids have had some very solid friends that the thought never even crossed my mind. So, nor do I think my visual inspection would somehow alleviate any possible concern. So,
let me just tell you, dude, that a lot of my friends' parents thought I was a solid friend, and I wasn't always.
Right. But did you guys all make it home in one piece? Because I, of course, had questionable friends, but I don't know that a door-to-door interview would have solved any of that.
You smell alcohol on their breath when you say hi to Charlie for 4 minutes, hey, where are you guys going tonight? It doesn't have to be an adversarial type thing. Let me check you over. Well, I just want to get a vibe of, everyone okay?
Is that a veto window I have? If I feel Charlie's a little too high, I can be like, you know what? Nullified. This evening is canceled.
Well, I'd just grab my son and be like, is he okay? He seems like he's acting a little strange,
It's interesting. Yeah. I'm in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
Neo's off to college, and I know Neo's had a drink or two, but I don't think Neo's been drunk, and I don't think they've smoked pot. I know they did in high school because they were so staunchly against it.
Yeah.
And not in a compensating sort of way. And my son just confessed to me the other day that someone invited him to a party and asked him, what kind of edible do you want? And he told him, I'm on the football team, I'm trying to take things seriously, I'll come hang out, but I don't want a freaking edible.
Yeah.
So, I'm in a little bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
And starting that stuff to my senior year either. So maybe it's not crazy in the harness world. But.
Yeah, maybe so. And like I said, I'm not a parent, so these are just things I imagine myself doing. So, all right. Hey, we're talking about things right now that are rules from the 60s that sound insane to teenagers today. Dress code for dates. Yeah. Boys wore sports coats and slacks, and girls wore dresses and proper stockings.
Right. Yeah. Listen, I still don't abide by a dress code if anyone's watching the show on the internet. Right. So, a dress code. I am so against uniforms and dress codes and conformity. It just makes me feel repressed. I've never put that on my kids. And unless someone showed up in a thong, I can't imagine that I would ever come down on a teenager for that. I get that it was the thing back in the old days, but no, that would sound very weird nowadays.
You would come down on somebody for a thong? You wouldn't say, man, you got a thong on. That's nice.
Yeah, I suppose that's the extreme example. If you're one piece of clothing away from nudity, then maybe I'll say something. Otherwise, no, clothing is an expression of who you are, especially when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
So, no, I can't imagine that being an issue.
I agree. These are rules that took place back in the 60s that we think are bullcrap today, especially teens. No public displays of affection. Hand-holding was about as daring as it got in public. Kissing was strictly private business. If you were caught smooching in public, you'd risk your reputation and probably a stern talk to from both sets of parents, mind you.
Well, I mean, I have my own philosophies on PDA that I would put onto my kids as well, but I'd also be putting it onto myself. Like, I think hand-holding, I think some level of kissing is appropriate. It's expressing love and intimacy, and your kids should see you treat your significant other that way. That's appropriate. I would never make out in public, whether my kids were around or not. And I'm certainly not dry humping in public or anything else. So I hold that for myself. And yes, if I saw my kids giving their person a little kiss or holding hands, I would think that's adorable. But yeah, if they're dry humping and making out in public, then yeah, I think that's still inappropriate.
Where do you stand on finger banging?
In public?
Yeah.
I'd say it's
Okay. These are rules that we had to adhere to in the 60s, and now today not so much. Meeting the family first. Before any serious dating could begin, you had to properly introduce the entire family. This meant exchanging, your family with each other. This is do you think it's acceptable?
Boy, what an old school philosophy for sure. That sounds like, the arranged marriage thing, the Hatfields and the McCoys all getting together and loving or hating each other or whatever. And what a logistical nightmare. I mean, it's hard enough to ask a girl out on a date. Now I got to go meet the whole freaking family and get my family over there. I hope we all get along. What if they don't? Can I not take Mary Lou out for the night now?
This article says it even went as far as the grandparents needing to be involved, and they all had to weigh in on your potential as a suitable match. It was like a job interview with pot roast and extra security.
Wow. Did I have to bring a cow over, too, as a trade to take your daughter out for the night?
It does. That sounds like bullshit, dude. Yeah. What about chaperone dates? This was something a younger sibling would be sent along as a chaperone oftentimes back in the 60s.
No. I don't ever hear of that, first of all. Now, again, if you're not 16, there were some scenarios where I may drop you off at the arcade, and I know you're safe and controlled in there, but I'm not going to sit there around the corner and watch. I may wait in the parking lot or come back in 2 hours to pick you up. But actually sending a chaperone on a date, no, that I've never heard of that in the modern era, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's all right, especially a younger or a sibling. I don't want to take my sibling on a date. That's stupid. These are things that happened in the 60s that hopefully aren't happening anymore because they freak teens out. The 3-date rule. Ever heard of it? Dating multiple people simultaneously was considered improper. After 3 dates with the same person, you were expected to be going steady or end things.
I agree with that rule, quite frankly. Yes. But that's just common sense. I don't think that's old school. I mean, that's something I abided by. I will give you a maximum of 3 dates to figure out if this is going somewhere. And if it is going somewhere, then yes. Dating multiple people at one time is a logistical freaking nightmare. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. So, yeah, give it a couple of dates and then shit or get off the pot.
Well, but yes, I see that for you. But if Crosby or if your son starts going out on dates, if he dates the same person 3 times, are you going to sit him down and be like, well, it's either you're going steady or dump that girl?
I don't know that I would give him that lecture for that, but if he had gone on at least 3 dates with one girl and then said, now I'm asking out a different one, I would probably tell him, like, dude, you got to pick your priorities here. Like, are you not into the first girl? Are you just testing waters? Because, yeah, more than 3 dates, there's got to be something going on there.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to raise a little male gigolo that's just out there playing the field in high school. Like, that's crazy.
So
Same
funny.
Advice for adults.
You and I think that way. I think there is definitely people who don't find anything wrong with dating multiple people at the same time as long as you're honest about it.
Because we're good guys. This is what we were talking about, where, Kennedy's daughter in her early 20s is out there trying to find a good guy and is having a hard time, and asked her mom, like, what's the percentage? Good guys versus bad guys. And it ain't 50-50. It's about 20-80. So the 80% of the bad guys probably do think it's awesome to play the field and have as many girls as you want. But no, that's a giant freaking red flag, logistically, emotionally, and everything else.
Is it all guys, though? I hear girls doing it, too.
That'd be a problem as well. Like, what are you doing this for? I've never been into the concept of dating just to get to, to sex or whatever. Like, if you're looking for a relationship, then none of that makes sense to be dating multiple people at the same time. Unless, like I did, you're going on a first date with this one. A few nights later, you got a first date set up with another one. Like, the whole first or second date thing can overlap. But yeah, once you get past 3 or 4 dates, like, if you're into that person, give them the respect of your sole attention. So yeah, I would encourage my kids to do that, like they did in the 60s and still should be doing now.
All right. You agree? I agree. I think it's great. This is interesting. This is called a formal introduction, and it's required, Steve. You couldn't just walk up and start talking to someone who caught your eye. A proper introduction by a mutual friend or family member was required. We always see in like older movies like, hey, what's Susan's situation, Like you had to have somebody like, hey, introduce you.
There was some ambassador that had to be part of this. Like, that's weird. So back in the 50s and 60s, no one just went up and cold called a prospective date.
Yeah.
Like Back to the Future. Your future son has to introduce the parents to you.
I don't know if it's that drastic, but yeah, something like that.
Interesting. I mean, that seems easier. I didn't know that was a standard, though.
Yeah, it was a requirement, not a standard, Steve.
And it's probably still easier nowadays, too, though, to say, what's up with her, introduce me, tell, or online or something. Like,
for sure. But you should have the option.
I've said in my dating exploits, I always felt this way, but especially post-Me Too era, it is just creepy to go up to a woman in public, at a Starbucks, whatever it is, and just start hitting on her, ask her for a number. That seems so aggressive and creepy to me.
Yeah. That's what you said. I don't know. I don't see it that way in my mind, but I haven't ever done it, in this day and age anyway, but I did it plenty of times back in my playa, back in my playa days.
Right. I don't know. I would encourage introductions still.
All right. We're going over a list right now of things that were standard requirements in the 1960s when it comes to dating. And today, teens are freaked out by it. No phone calls after 9 p.m. The family phone had strict rules. You remember the family phone, right?
Well, I was going to say, when there was a phone tied to the kitchen wall, it was almost impossible to have a call after 9 o'clock because you'd be making a lot of noise in the house. But, into our era, I remember I was probably in early or middle school by the time I had a phone in my own room. So I don't know that there were strict rules on when you could or couldn't talk.
Yeah, my dad always monitored it if he was home. Like, first of all, my friends couldn't call me late. Like, if my friends called me, I don't know, and I'm talking like junior high or early high school, like if my friends called at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, my dad would pick up the phone and be like, why are you calling so late? That type of thing. But yeah, I definitely, if my dad heard me talking on the phone in my room and it was late, he'd oftentimes poke his head in and be like, hey, get off the phone. It's late.
Yeah, that's funny. I do recall eavesdropping on my sisters talking on the phone a lot. And I had this little technique, the old school phones that were split end. You had a speaker on one end and the microphone on the other end.
Yeah.
You could take the phone off the hook, but like put your finger down to keep the receiver down. You could unscrew that bottom microphone piece and take the microphone out. So they couldn't possibly hear you breathing or anything. I would sit there and eavesdrop forever.
What were you hearing, dude? Was it all just bullshit? Like, oh, did you try the new lip gloss? Or did you hear heavy, like Troy finger banged me in the woods?
No, it was boyfriend stuff, but no, they never had any good conversations.
Yeah.
I did walk in on my sister once performing some sort of activity on her boyfriend.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
How old were you?
I would have been middle school. They were high school. And yeah, she was heading down south on him, and I went running into her bedroom, and I didn't know what they were doing at the time.
Right.
Like, it took me years to think back of like, oh, now I get why her head was down low. But the funny thing, that boyfriend the next day came over the house and he gave me a pair of nunchucks. He was trying to bribe me. And I was just like, nunchucks? Awesome. I didn't connect any dots. I was never going to tell anyone because I didn't know what I'd seen. But yeah, he came and bribed me with nunchucks.
That is fantastic. That is such an 80s movie, dude. Did you ever talk to your sister about it later in life?
No. Maybe she'll listen to this, but no.
Yeah. These are all things that were required for dating back in the 60s and are crazy today. This one you're going to agree with, okay? The door side car rule. A gentleman always opened the car door for his date, no exceptions. He'd walk around to her side, open the door, wait until she was properly seated, and close it carefully.
I encourage slamming their ankle on the door, actually. I think you got to keep it real. But yes, I've said it before. That is a gentlemanly thing to do, and it's such an effortless thing that goes so far. I have run into a few scenarios recently, though, with Kennedy, where it's completely impractical that I get to the door first. Like, it's in between two tight cars in the parking lot. I still insist on getting there, even though it really makes no sense. But right. Yeah. And when we were in Seattle, I did not open the car door for her because I came up with some rule that made sense in my brain of, I'm not driving, Nick's driving, so I'm not opening your car door. It's only when I drive that I open your car door.
Was I supposed to open her door?
No, because you're not dating. So
okay.
No.
All right. Good. I'm glad
I
didn't.
A weird set of parameters on that rule, but it still should be done.
How about this one? Meeting the minister. In many communities, serious couples were expected to meet with their minister or religious leader before getting too serious.
Is that because the minister already got to second base with her and we're just looking for dating advice?
Could be, dude. We don't know.
I would burst into flames for that conversation. So no, but how freaking hilarious in that. And just how demeaning. What does the minister have to do with it? He's got ownership over you. The father makes some